wonderful. So we had lots of fun doing that. That was really great. We've got a fabulous group of people in, so that was lovely. And then I did a mixture of, family stuff
Yeah.
and getting ready for that and catching up with people and catching up with some book actions as well.
Yeah.
So I that's all going pretty well. I've got a series pretty much at the top at the moment, so I'm very happy about that.
Cool.
And interestingly, sometimes when you get busy doing other stuff
Yeah.
and distract yourself, that's when the magic happens. So it's classic law of attraction in the making. So yeah, all really great. I'm ready for the week. Busy week. Lots of things, exciting things coming up this week. So it's great. And you, Ty, did you go out and about? Because I've not been on Facebook much, so I didn't see what you've been doing.
Yeah, I did. So we did a couple of things this weekend. So it was a very busy weekend. My wife and I we went out Friday night, and I said to myself, I said, you know what? The things that I did, because we've been together for like 23, 24 years or something like that, right? I'm gonna let more people in too. So I'm like, I'm always conscious of the things that I did to first get her. I need to make sure that I'm still doing the things now, right? Like making sure that, and for guys, it's like it could be simple things, right? When the guy first meets his significant, it's like making sure that your hygiene is right, right? Making sure that you don't have the same boxers or underwear that you've had for the last 15 years. So, getting a new pair every year or every 6 months or whatever it might take. Um, just going out for appetizers and things. So we went out for appetizers on Friday. And then yesterday, last night. So Nat Geo has this show on octopus. Have you guys seen that? Any of you guys watched this last night? And I thought it was fascinating. I've been waiting for this show for an entire month. I don't watch TV much, but there's certain things that I'll see and I'm like, oh my God, I want to watch this. So we sat and we watched this show last night um, twice because there were back-to-back episodes, which I didn't know. So I sat and we watched this thing for 2 hours. And these, like octopus, are just fascinating animals. They have the ability to change color multiple times over, right? They have the ability to change the texture of their skin, right? Which is interesting. And then they also have the ability to shapeshift. So it helps them. It's a protection mechanism and all of these different things that they can do. There's octopus that are as small as the size of an egg and as large as like 30 feet. So I'm watching this thing last night. And as I go to bed last night, I'm also reading James Allen's As a Man Thinketh. And this morning, and actually you and I were chatting about him, right? He's actually over there from the UK, which is where he lived. But this morning I come across this passage, and I know that we have our quote as well. And this passage says in the book, As a Man Thinketh, of all the beautiful truths pertaining to the soul which have been restored and brought to light in this age, none is more gladdening or fruitful of divine promise and confidence than this, that man or woman is the master of thought, the molder of character, and the maker and shaper of conditions, environment, and destiny. As a being of power, intelligence, and love, and the Lord of his or her own thoughts, man holds the key to every situation and continues within himself that transforming and regenerative agency by which he may make him or herself whatever he or she wills. Right? So it kind of reminded me of the octopus being able to shapeshift and change colors. And now we can't do all of that, humans. I wish we could because that would be pretty cool. But we do have the ability to really totally transform our lives, right? Go from good to bad. I mean, we can even go from, bad to good, right? Well, that was backwards. I meant go from bad to good. And there's some people that go from good to bad. And I think that what we're doing on this show and even our challenges, right? We just did the Cinderella challenge and everything that we do as far as bringing guests are helping you guys. Hopefully, we're helping you guys go from bad to good, or we're helping giving you these paradigm shifts. So,
Yeah. And also, when you're delivering something, whether that's a series on Amazon, whether that's a training session like we do, or, it's about your thoughts about how you feel about doing that.
yeah,
When you're in alignment, um, and you totally want to do it to help other people. We were talking about this in the training last night. We've got to come from a place of
Yeah.
serving our readers. It's not about us, it's about our readers who are looking at our content. Then things go really, really well, because then everyone else picks up on that energy, and then they know that with that alignment, you've got a better chance of serving them as and helping them and supporting them, rather than, oh, just another thing that I'm doing, I'm so busy, that sort of mentality. So it's about getting in the right headspace as well when you're doing these things, getting in the right headspace when you're launching your book series.
Yep.
This is going to go to the top. This is great. This is as great as all the other books at the top, and just trying to feel as good as you can, as often as you can, which will significantly affect your results. I just said an example at the beginning where sort of just thinking about things differently, distracting myself. A series that I've been working hard on is going, it was at number one. It hit there for about 3 days. It's dropped to number two, but it's still doing really, really well. And that was my ambition, to get to the top 1,000 on Amazon. I've been trying to do that for a little bit of time, but that was down to me. And it was just changing some thought processes, changing some strategies, and it's there. So yeah, it's incredible.
Something to keep in mind, right? It's whenever you're in this creating something, making sure that you have the right energy as you're going into creating it, right? So because that energy carries through. Speaking of impacting people and just really helping people, I'm excited about our guest today. I want to bring him on. But this is a gentleman who, and I'm actually going to unmute you, Eric, and then I'll pin you on. And man, I'm happy to have you on this morning. I'm gonna actually read off a little bit about your bio here. Not only, so we've got with us the incredible Eric Lavore this morning, and Eric is someone who I've had the chance to work with. We actually did an event that you had did down in Texas, if I remember correctly, Eric, years ago, way before the pandemic. And we had we went to an incredible place to eat out there. What was it, like Salt Lick, or what was the name?
Yeah, Salt Lick barbecue.
Yeah, we went out there for man. And I've been trying to get back there ever since.
I go there a little too much, but yeah, it's great.
It was insane. So Eric, you're a Christian, a father of 2 kids, man. Great family, beautiful family, actually. Husband, you live on Lake Travis, Texas, just outside of Austin, which I think is where your event was at.
Right.
Spoke at. You love sports, fishing, and traveling. And you've been online for about 20 years, which is incredible. I love that. And not only have you made tens of millions of dollars in just different ways online, including $1 million in a single day. So Eric's been able to make $1 million in a single day, but you also have helped a lot of people, right? I've known you for a while. Matt Gill, who I also know and have known you through, he always talks really highly of you. I'm trying to get Matt on the show, man, but I think it's too early for Matt. But you just go in and you just give, man. You help people, and to be able to do that for decades and decades is something that's super special. So before we jump into you, I want you to meet my co-host, Caroline Trainer. Caroline, meet Eric. Great guy.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi. I heard you were from Ilfracombe.
I'm sorry?
I've heard you from.
No. That was James Allen.
Oh, I thought that was on your message.
No, yeah, that was James Allen, who's from.
I got that wrong.
I was like, what'd you call me? No, I'm kidding.
No, it's somewhere where I thought you were from, which is near me.
Yeah, over in the UK near her. I was telling her that James Allen was over in the UK and was born in.
Well, it's good to meet you.
Yeah,
nice to meet you too.
So Eric, man, I know it's kind of early, right? You're over there in Texas. Tell us who are you, man? Because I never really got your full story as far as, how did you get started in the IM space? Like, what interested in you in this thing? Like, what was that first spark for you? I'm super curious.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, for having me here. I've always been a big fan of yours. I've always felt this really great affinity for you. I mean, way back when we did that event, and I didn't really know who you were at the time. And then we were in the back room and you came up and I was talking to you, and man, I just always felt this really great connection, as I'm sure everyone here has that feeling about you as well. You're just very magnetic and big heart. And I just really feel that from you. And so anything you ever need, man, I'm there for you. I'll be there to help you. So thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
bringing me on board. And I've just always really enjoyed being around you, and love your heart and everything. For me, man, I grew up pretty broken, pretty poor. And so when I was like in my teenage years, my mom joined this multi-level marketing company. This was in the late 80s. And I remember one Sunday I put in the VCR tape, and all these people were getting up on stage talking about how much money they were making. And, we were always pretty poor. So I was like, I saw a bunch of normal people making a lot of money. And now, so I was starting to get ambitious at that age. And so I asked my mom if I can get involved. And that's when I started reading books, because they recommended these different books, Think and Grow Rich and The Power of Positive Thinking, and on and on and on. And so I started tearing into those books, and went off to college to play college baseball. And so those books started to become kind of like my mentors, the people I relied on. All the trouble I would go through at that age, just trying to find myself, I would just relate to those books. And so those became my first place to go to learn, how to have faith, and how to have, focus on what I want instead of what I don't want, all those things. And then so that led me into my working years. And so I got some jobs, usually in sales. And same thing on the side, I was trying to make my own money doing, bigger things on the side. And then in the mid 1990s, I decided to just start my own ad agency. I saved up some money, not much, a few $1,000s or so, but I was just in my 20s. So I started an ad agency, and hired a bunch of college kids to sell advertising. So we'd go to the radio stations and, the newspapers and yellow pages and all of that, and struck deals where we would resell their advertising.
Oh,
And
wow.
we made a lot of money doing that. And so in the first couple of months, I made like over $100,000, which was like making millions to me. And that kind of skyrocketed my entire life, because I think at that point I realized like I could go get a job and maybe at the time make $40,000 a year,
Yeah.
or I could start a business and make I mean, the sky would be the limit. And so I was like 25 years old. I'm 52 now. And so I've been pretty much an entrepreneur ever since. And then online, I became 100% focused about 20 years ago. And I hit $1 million in 2007. So that was my early 2007. So I quit my job in 2006. Well, I was making a few $100,000 a year then. And then I hit the $1 million, which was my dream, online in 2007. So been doing that ever since. I live mostly in the high ticket space. I heard law of attraction. Someone mentioned that. I've always been a big believer in that. And what you desire is what you're going to get when you put your focus on that. A big mindset guy is probably why me and you've always related really well together. To go from changing your DNA or your operating system from someone who grew up poor to someone, who's doing really well for himself or herself. I think that takes the process. And so for me, I've paid attention in that process, and I've seen what people who are very successful are like, and people who are not successful, and kind of what they're doing versus what the others are doing. And, just really paid attention to that. And so I have a lot to share. I live in the high ticket space mostly. So you like to sell really expensive programs and services. And so here I am.
I love it. I love it. Man, you said a couple of things. And the first thing I want to go back to is the fact that at an early age, you saw the possibilities. And I think that was a paradigm shift for you, right? Where you're like,
Yeah.
man, I could do this, or I could do the traditional, right? And the traditional is not going to get me anywhere near what I was doing. You're still serving. It's still traditional, but outside of probably what in your circle, and when I say circle, I'm talking about like kind of where I was at, family and friends and what they have traditionally done, maybe, right?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we're pretty broken. My family, my parents were in the oil field here in Texas, so at times we did pretty good, and other times we are just dirt poor because the oil would change, right, and things would change, and so it was a lot of people in South Texas, went through the same similar thing. But I think the pendulum swings, like so. My family was a certain way, the way I was growing up, and I didn't want to be that way, so it swung the other way, where everything I wanted was kind of opposite of what that life was like, and wanted to provide my kids who are in the other room getting ready for school right now, provide them with what I didn't have. And so I think the pendulum swings like that. But yeah, at an early age, I saw, things. And then even when the job, like I had a day job, and I saw it was, this company in Houston, and I saw this lady who was the vice president of the whole company. And I'm like, man, one day I want to be like her and be like a vice president or president. Well, I knew this girl that worked in the human resource department, right? And so she said, guess how much she makes? And I was like, I don't know, 300,000 a year or whatever. She was like, I think she said something like 80 grand or something like that. And I was like, that's not much more than I'm making. I was like, wait a minute, you work your whole life to become like the highest level in this corporation, and that's all you're making? Like, I don't want to work the next 40 years of my life to end up making 30 grand more than I'm making right now per year. So I remember that was a big shift for me, where I was like, I have more ambition inside me, especially after I bombarded myself with all of the books and the unlimited thinking and the powerful thinking and entrepreneurial and business and being somebody and all that. Like, I just was not going to allow myself to be limited by what the corporation says you can make or who you can be. So that was a big moment for me, where I'm like, I really need to do my own thing. And that's when I started the ad agency right after that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you think it's, as you were talking just now, I'm thinking like, so I got exposed to a lot of this stuff kind of at an early age, right? Probably around the same time that you did, around 25 or so. First read Les Brown when I was about 17, but then really started to take personal development serious later in life, right? 25, 26, 27 or so. And I've continued throughout my entire life. I'm 52 as well. Eric, we don't look 52, man. I got to tell you, we're doing something good. We got to go back to that restaurant there, because I think that's it. But do you think it's ever too late? Because I talk to a lot of people, and you talk to a lot of people, right? We talk to people that are our age and that are older, that are younger as well. Do you think it's ever too late for someone to start to understand the power within themselves, like the possibilities that they have within themselves?
Well, I think that for me, I'm always like renewing myself, right? The renewing of the mind. I'm always recreating myself, especially online, right? Things change. Like we can't do AdSense like we did back in the day, right? Like things change. Yeah. And so I'm always reinventing myself. I've gone through like a reinvention process here recently, right? So there's always, I think a lot of us had to pivot and reinvent ourselves and adapt when COVID and the pandemic and the lockdowns and all that. So I mean, we're always trying to reinvent things. I mean, I remember when everything I had was on Google AdWords. Like my whole life was on Google AdWords. Like that's where all the traffic came from. It's where all the income came from. And I had all my eggs in that basket. And then they just decided to flip a switch and ban me. And I was just like, what happened? And then my merchant account got frozen at the same time, because we had a bunch of money that it came in. And then I had to pay all these affiliates at the same time. And I was like, I remember just totally having to reinvent myself during that process. So, whenever I'm, 45 years old or 48 years old, and I'm like reached this level where I just thought I was invincible, and then all of a sudden it's all gone.
Yeah.
It's all completely just practically bankrupt at that moment. Then in my mind resorted all the way back to the old Eric operating system, where I was like, I'm not good enough. It's over. It was fun while it lasted. I'm gonna have to go get a job, and this whole, it was just a fluke. I'm not, the imposter syndrome kicks in, and all the negative emotions stop bombarding me and all that, and life was really hard. And I remember, if you guys remember John Reese, I remember talking to John Reese in my driveway, because any conversation with him was like 2.5 hours long. So I was like talking to John,
right.
And then we were talking about a common problem that we had at the time. And, we're just kind of wallowing and complaining, how that can go. And then he's like, wait a minute, what are we doing? we need to come up with a plan. We're better than this. Let's plan what we want and let's make it happen. And instead of thinking about what we don't want, let's make that plan and attack that plan and stick to it. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And I remember that moment because I was a big fan of John Reese. At that moment, I just shifted from this guy that was going downhill to, and it was a month or so into that transformation that I just got right back on top again, and it was then I got the big head again, right? So it's always like that type of journey for us, no matter what age you're at. And so we're always reinventing ourselves. So like, it's almost like starting from scratch. But if you have that foundation of your faith and what you believe in, and, knowing that you can do anything you put your mind to, really, then that's kind of the foundation to build a skyscraper, right? So anytime you just lose it all, or you're not in your right pathway or in alignment, someone said that's that there's an opportunity to do that at any age.
At any age, yeah.
And how long did you, Eric? Did you say that was in your 40s? That was when you were that time when that really difficult period.
It was it was in the 40s. I was in my 40s.
Yeah. So not long ago in terms of how quickly then you can make it change again.
Well, my daughter's 10, so it was it was about 10 years ago. So I was about 42, 43, something like that.
Yeah. So just 10 years ago. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember it like it was, yesterday, because it was such a profound time, where things were tough, right? It's like I was getting attacked in all these different ways. It's like that's how it felt. And then, I had to recreate myself and, reach down on my guts and find, who are you, and, what are you capable of doing? So, at the time, it's like, well, what do I have going? This is part of what I had a conversation with John Reese, was like, what are the assets I have? And I was like, well, I'm really good at copywriting. I'm good at sales. I can teach. I have really good contacts like Ty and others. I started counting all my blessings and, what my assets are. And I'm like, now, okay, let me start from there and build a plan to get out of this mess and, get myself right, start getting healthier and everything. Cause I was just spiraling down because I just felt like, everything I thought I was going to be was gone. And then,
this is so good, man. This is
history.
Yeah, this is really good because there's somebody that's watching this, probably a few people that are watching this that are not in the same space, right? It's different, but they're going through something right now, and just hearing you. And this hearing you kind of brings me back to, because we've always had those moments, right? We see them as entrepreneurs. And I mean, I remember having a moment where 2008 hit and just things were just boom, 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 boom. And it was a beautiful period just before that. Right. And then 2007, 2008 hits and things just start spiraling. And I had a conversation with Greg Caesar, actually. I think you know Greg, right?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I know Greg.
You know Greg, right? We had him as a guest here. And same thing, man. You always have to have those people in your corner. You may not speak to them regularly, but when you do speak to them, boom, they could bring you back, right? They could say something that reminds you of who you are, because that's what it is. We all have this power within us, but we kind of forget who we are and what we're capable of at times. And then instead of thinking about all the good stuff that we've been able to do and overcome, it starts to pile on. 2007, 2008, man, I remember getting an IRS bill for $400,000. And I told my wife, I said, this is crazy. I'm going to work at Walgreens. I'm going back to Walmart or whatever. I said, this is sick. I'm working so damn hard. Now, it was the best thing to ever happen to me. But at the time, it felt like the worst thing. Best thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me to be more responsible as it relates to taxes and educate myself on all the things that I could do to take more deductions and to, kind of put money into different places. I had to get better at bookkeeping, hiring an outside bookkeeping service, get better at my CPAs and who I was hiring and the types of businesses that they were used to, doing, and at the volumes that those businesses were used to doing. And it just put me in this different mind state. Now, I'm not going to say that I didn't wallow in that, for a good period, and the woe is me, and I'm nothing, I can't do anything. And you start to think about all of the craziness and pile that on. And like you said, even the eating habits, right? You start to, it's a total downward spiral. But then you bring yourself out of it and it's an upward, right? So,
It's sort of like all the old ways of thinking come back, don't they?
come back.
The poverty, like you say, from your family,
Yeah.
sort of the way things were for many years, and it's like, yeah, you know, this was just a, like Eric said, this was just a period of time. Now it's all gone. Eric, did you find there was like massive, like Ty said, massive growth during that period, and it took less time to bounce back than it did to grow everything in the first place in your 20s?
Oh yeah, I think what happens is when things start spiraling down, we're looking down, right? We're looking down saying, "Oh, I hope this doesn't happen," and you know, this is going wrong and that's going wrong, and I hope that doesn't happen, and you're just kind of going down and you're looking down. But maybe you hit like this rock bottom spot and then you can't look down anymore. You hit your level of going down, right? And then the only place you can look is up.
Yeah.
So like when you start looking up, you're like, you know, I could do this and I can do that and I can do that. And the more I guess you train yourself over time to, you know, sell and drive traffic and make money and you know all these kinds of things. The more times you've pulled yourself out of these ruts, then you look up and the quicker you zip up to that level again. And so
Yeah.
you know the life of an entrepreneur can be up and down and up and down. And then I think also during 2008 time period, a lot of marketers got hit with the IRS. I mean, there was a lot of people in our industry that, you know, we all started learning at that time how to deal with those things because, you know, a lot of us were new money, as we say at that point. But and then with Les Brown, I wanted to bring that back up. I remember being at an event one time, and he was there, and he was one of the speakers. Tony Robbins was there, and Paul Abdul, a lot of different people. And I was like, "What am I doing here?" It was pretty interesting. But I went up to him just to say, "I just love you, man. Just like you know, gone through all your stuff." And I walked up and he's like, "What do you do?" And so I told him I'm an internet market. Most of the people there were like authors and speakers and like, you know, personal development people. And there was only a few of us who were like internet marketers that were there in our industry. So I was like, "Well, online marketing." And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, start telling him what I do and all that. He's like, "Man, I need your phone number. I need you to help me." And I'm like, "What is going on here?" Like, he's asking me for help, which is really just rocked my world because like I was like going and take a picture with them. And so it's amazing, like leverage, you know, when you have some skills pay the bills, you know, when you have abilities and talents that you use, like even someone like Les Brown needs help in those areas. So it's really interesting. But
And no
yeah,
one can take that away, you know. You
indeed.
can take away the material for a while, but no one can take away that journey you've been on, the skills you've developed and the talents. And so that's phenomenal, isn't it? Because you hear so many stories of people that have made a lot of money and lost it all, um, and and then they bounce back literally within like a few years. Of course, it's not days; it takes time, but because of all that pre-paving they've done with their mind, but also all the skills that they've developed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
what is it in the
amazing.
darkest times, in the darkest times is when the light shines brightest. So like whenever
Yeah,
you're it's the stressing before the blessing, like whenever you're going through a season, you know, you're in the wilderness and you're going through a season and things are hard and nothing seems to work right and you know everything's just messed up and jacked up. I mean, we live in a world that's broken, right? It's a broken world. Nothing works right, everything's messed up. So whenever we're in that kind of a season, if you really read between the lines and start to pay attention, you'll start to see the things that you need to adjust, tweak, edit to come out of that season and have a new spring where, you know, the birds are singing again, the clouds go away, the sun starts shining, the trees look greener, the water looks bluer, and you start making a lot more sense of things and start feeling you know, invigorated again because you came out of that season. So during that season, although it's super hard, right? It's super hard. You come out of it and you look back and you're like, I'm really glad that IRS thing happened in 2008 because it taught me how to do things properly, taught me how to steward money and manage money and all that type of stuff, which is a big fork in the road as a business owner. When you start making a lot of money, you also become a target, right? So you got to like, that fork in the road comes and you got to decide to start managing your money properly, or you're just going to continue to live in, struggle when it comes to that. So we all learn that along the way, eventually.
Yeah, that's so true. And when I got it's a little thing compared to building up millions and losing it, but I got hacked last year into not just my Facebook ad accounts, but also all my systems as well. And that was that was really, I cried a bit. Philip will tell you, and but it was the best thing that ever happened because it made me get better at marketing. Because all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, we're just relying on this one key form of marketing. So let's build organically while we're sorting all that out. It also made me make sure I've got plenty. I couldn't have avoided the hack because it was one of those decoding Facebook situations with these hackers that were targeting thousands of people at the same time in the UK on the same day. But the systems in place were substandard to deal with it. So then it made us have backup and, other people that could run ads if it was all taken away from me, all those things that obviously they're quite simple, but we hadn't set it up. We hadn't set it up at all. So it was the best thing that ever happened for the business. And then it took a while, it probably took a year, but a year later, it's stronger and better and more lucrative than it was a year ago. It's like a major wake-up call. And I learned loads. And I think whenever you've got that adversity, and I've done, we've all been through lots of that in life, if you can just pick out all the bits of, this is happening for my greatest good, this is happening for my greatest good, then the growth is huge, isn't it? And then you become better and bigger. But it's interesting because when you said about then you start to appreciate, the sky seems bluer, you're hearing the birds, it sort of reminded me of when you get sick and then you get better and then all of a sudden you appreciate everything, even just little bits of sickness. Like last night when I came off our training, I had a migraine and it was very early hours anyway because the training was late at night for me, so I went to bed and I just listened to some meditation for an hour and massaged my head and when I got better I sort of cured it within an hour. But after that I was like, oh, this bed is so cozy, and just appreciated everything. And that was just one tiny thing, and it reminded me of that, when you go through anything which is not what you want, if you can then immediately see the good in everything, then life just starts to look so different, doesn't it? If something bad happens and then it gets better, you start to appreciate all those things around you that you take for granted. And it's sort of, I guess it's about trying to get ourselves in that space every day of appreciating all of those things
without all of
around
the other
us.
stuff that has to come before it.
Yeah, without thinking all the other stuff. Yeah, and without having to go through the contrast, even though I know that's part of life. But yeah, that's an amazing story. So helpful for everyone as well, building a business that are building from scratch right now here.
It is so very helpful, right? So I'm glad that you started that way because I mean we've all seen these things, right? The merchant account. I talk about how I've had a merchant account with $100,000 frozen in it for 6 months, and and you learn from all of these things, right? Napoleon Hill talks about with every adversity, there's a seed of an equal or better opportunity, right? You learn not to have just one merchant account. You have multiple ways of dealing with processing. Like you with AdWords, I had a lot of my business, all of my business was based off of the traffic that I got from Google, right? And then smacked by Google 5, 6, 7 times. And you said, you know what, this is not going to happen again. Facebook is doing that to a lot of people now, right? So you're in a high ticket space. Explain to someone who may be watching this who's not familiar with what high ticket means. What exactly is high ticket?
Well, so for me, that was one of those moments. So I was always in the lower ticket world. So I would sell like a membership site where people would pay like $67 a month or $47 a month. And I'd have like a few thousand people in there paying that, which was a great life. Right. And then, I would sell like a sales funnel that would have like a $7 front end and then like a $100 upsell and then like a, $300 upsell from there. And all that. And it all works. Everything, all that works. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but at a time when I sold a business, and then and this was the time of my daughter was being born, and then we were going through some big challenges at that time. I did the one piece of the bit when me and John Reese talked, and the plan that I had, excuse me, was to start doing consulting, coaching. So at the time, I really loved that, and that was the one piece I thought I'm going to build the business on. But I also had always had an agency since the mid 1990s, which was
I
one
didn't
of
know
the
that.
business.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the businesses. I've sold that business. I've sold agencies like 3 or 4 different times over all these years. So I'm like, I'm going to do an agency and I'm going to do some high ticket consulting. So the agency was going to be, something like $2,500 a month. Well, anything I think, in my opinion, that's $2,500 or higher, I consider it high ticket, especially $2,500 a month. So I started doing an agency at $2,500 a month, and I started doing coaching. At that time, I decided to start doing it at 10 grand a pop. And so I started out just marketing to my email list, right? And then I would market high ticket like the 10K offer, and then I would switch back to the agency offer. We'll get you traffic and all that, and then switch back again to the high ticket offer of coaching, and then switch back to agency. So over the course of many months, I was either selling the agency in some form or fashion in different angles, or I was selling the coaching in some form or fashion in different angles. And what I found was I went from a business that was doing a few $1,000,000 a year. We had 30 employees maybe at the time. I mean, I had an
On the
office over
agency
here.
side.
Well, no, it was well, okay. Yeah, I'm kind of being a little bit confusing. I sold a business, right?
Okay.
That business I sold had 30 employees about. We had 2 different staffs. We had a bunch of people working for us. We had payroll. I had a big office here in Austin. And I realized that a lot of times I didn't even like walking into my own business, right? It was just a bunch of drama. It was a bunch of problems and issues. So then when I sold that business, I said, I don't want a bunch of employees. I don't want an office. I want to work from home. I want to enjoy my daughter, because my son, when he was born, he's, about 5 years older than my daughter. I spent a lot of time pulling all-nighters and working really hard. So I wanted to make sure I was there for my daughter. So I'm like, I'm going to do an agency on the side in a small manner, and I'm going to do coaching. I'm just going to do it from home. I'm going to charge high ticket. And so when I started charging 10K and $2,500 a month, what happened was, and the reason why I bring this up is I realized I started making a lot more net income.
Yeah.
So even though I was working less hours and I had less employees, I had less moving parts, I had less of everything, right? Yeah. Less traffic I was spending money on, less everything. At one point, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm making more net income by far now than I did when I had all those employees, like by far. Maybe we did more gross income, like maybe we did 3 million, with the business, but we did and I did like 800,000 that first, several months as a coach in agency, but like it was almost all pure profit, which I didn't make that much profit when I had the business I sold, right, with all the employees. So I started realizing like, wow, I think this might be where I'm going to park myself for a while. And well, I've been there pretty much ever since. So that was like 10 years ago. So high ticket to me is, something that is expensive, right? That costs a lot.
And there's a barrier to it, right? So you're working with a different, I hate to say quality of individual, but to a degree, it's someone that has a different mindset.
Right.
Not just because they can afford it, right? That's out the window, but they're probably going to take your time a little bit more serious. They're probably going to take what you say a little more serious and put it in place and then get the results, right? Which is good for everyone. It's good for them. It's good for you because it's gratifying. It's airy, man, how many similarities we have. Because before we moved in this house, right before the pandemic, I got rid of my office. I had an office, and I actually had 3 offices. I had one in Connecticut when I lived there. When we moved here to North Carolina, I had 2 different offices. And each time it got to a point where I just didn't like going into the office, and I would go in because I felt guilty. My team was
Right.
going in, and I'm like, "There's no way," but they're there working, and I can't go in. So I would go in earlier, and I would stay a little bit later, and everything else. And right before the pandemic, I got rid of it, man. And I had about 27 employees, not all in the office. Most were virtual. I had 4 in the office. Um, but kind of did the same thing. I said, "Who do I want to work with?" I said, I'm going to set this criteria. I only want to work with certain people. I only want to work on the things that I want to work on. And I only want to work when I want to work. Now I like to work, right? So that didn't change. But the people that I worked with and then the things that I worked on changed so that it was more beneficial to me. And it gave me the freedom and the time to be there with my family, to just do whatever the hell I wanted to. So, and I think that we don't realize that we actually have those options because by society standards, we're taught that you go in, you put 8 hours in, and you're based on, like, those hours are based on what your employer says. So we're kind of confined to this time limit, whether it's 8 to 4 or whatever it be, 9 to 5, right? Monday to Friday. And then we get so used to that we forget that we have the freedom to do whatever the hell we want to do, as long as we figure out what it is that can help us to make that money and then go from there. How do you teach? Because do you take people that are traditional employees and then turn them into a business owner? Are any of your students people that fall into that category, or do they all have their business already up and running before they come to you?
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I get both. I get people who are brand new. They have, they have day jobs and they want to quit those day jobs and make, money online. And then I have people that, everywhere in between that have, a business going. They're trying to scale it, trying to generate, more money, or even clients that do a lot more revenue than I do, but they're like we were talking about, they don't have any time to do anything and they're just miserable and they want to scale back a lot of the moving parts, but then, continue to enjoy the profits or the income and the lifestyle, that they want. And so I get those clients too. So it's kind of a combination of, anyone that wants to go that direction with a high ticket. So even the new people that are like, haven't made any money, I'm like, well, you could go sell 10,000 little things, or you could sell a couple of expensive things, and it's a lot less moving parts to make, the same amount of money or more. Right. And like we were talking about the pandemic a minute ago, that's a perfect example. So like whenever the on the pandemic happened, you had a lot of people out there who were influencers, who were speakers, you know, even in the financial markets, like the financial advisors and insurance and all that, they were used to getting their clients at that time by going to events. So they would go to trade shows and get a booth, or they would go to, seminars and speak, or mixers in their local area. And that's how they got their clients, through networking and going to these events. When everything got locked down, well, then all of a sudden they didn't know what to do to generate sales, right? And it forced their hand to try to figure out how to get clients online. And we made a fortune because we were already targeting those people. And I was like, well, you need traffic. We can do that. You need help, learning this internet marketing stuff. And that's still the case today. There's still tons and tons of people in those industries that are still trying to figure out the online marketing stuff so they could get their leads online, instead of having to get dressed up, wear a suit and tie, fly across the world, go speak on stage, stand in front of a booth, and network their way to make an income. They got to a point where they liked being at home, wearing shorts and t-shirt and making money. They didn't want to get on a plane and fly away from their family anymore to do networking. So that's an example of what you were talking about, as far as, dark times forcing your hand into becoming better. And a lot of these people are becoming better now and realizing there's this thing that they invented called the internet, where you could use it to get clients. You could be at home, sipping coffee and making money, instead of, going into the office and all that. So they're learning those things. But yeah.
Fighting traffic and everything else, right? Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
What's the hardest thing that you found about taking someone who is looking to start a business, or grow their business? Like, what's the number one obstacle that you usually have to get that person past?
Well, there's a lot of answers to that. One I think is just with high ticket, with high ticket though. One of the really big ones is just to change their mind to realize that there's a lot of people out there that will pay them that high ticket amount. Like a lot of people are like, who's going to pay little me $10,000 or $25,000? I'm not worthy of that kind of money. And, you know, it's a bad economy. And there's like, you know, people out there that don't have any money, and, you know, groceries cost more and stuff. And people have that mindset. And then it's like, I'm like, no, there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of people that give you 10 grand without blinking an eye, but you're not going to get it if you're not focused on it, if you don't believe in yourself, if you're not even offering that price point out there, then you're not going to get it. Like one of my workshops, there was an attendee there, and she you probably know her well. Her name's Debbie. She was like, I have $1,000 product, Eric, and that's my like flagship product. How do I make it $10,000? And I was like, so you have $1,000 product. I'm like, we need to take a break right now, but let me write. So I wrote 1,000 on the whiteboard. I'm like, let's take a break, get your coffee, and then we'll come back and I'll explain exactly what you need to do to take your $1,000 product and make it a $10,000 product. So we left, came back. I was like, Debbie wants to know how to take her $1,000 product to a $10,000 product. Here's exactly what you want to do. You guys ready? And I just drew another zero. And I'm like, now it's ready for $10,000.
Man, I have the same conversation. So many people, like, it's hard for people to get that. One of the things they'll ask is, well, Ty, well, what's the difference between the thing I'm selling in my $1,000 product versus the $10,000 product? And I'm like, look, for the most part, 90% of it is the same. But people want that one-on-one. They want the difference in the attention that they're getting from you, right? And being able to ask you questions and the accessibility versus having to go through the $1,000 product on their own. And of course, all of the other things that might come with the $10,000 product, right? Most entrepreneurs, I think, whether they're already established or they're just new, they have, like, that's the biggest objection that they have is in their head, figuring out how are people going to pay me? And like you said, I'm not worthy of it. I don't have the degrees. I don't have, you know, the clout. I don't have the audience, right? How does somebody get past all of that? Because every single person that's watching this thing probably has an objection when it comes to pricing themselves. We're figuring out it's worth what they're going to price it at.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and you're spot on. So people are constantly like, well, okay, I want to start charging 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, whatever it is. And they're like, well, I need to go get, you know, certified. I need to go get another certificate. I need to go get this degree. I need to go do this thing or become this person or set up a $10,000 website or become a famous podcaster, or I need to go write a book. They think I could go do all these things before they're ready to receive high ticket, right? So that's the mindset that they have. And so here's the biggest key is a big secret. Okay, you guys ready? This is worth a ton of money. So this is what
lean in, guys.
All right, this is what you need to go from here to there with high tickets. That's it. Leaning forward is here's what you got to do. You got to have the courage, first of all, to do this, right? So when you're talking to somebody or interacting with them, selling them in some form or fashion, and you get to that point where they say, this sounds fantastic. How much is it? And you say, it's 10 grand. And then just zip it. And when the moment comes where someone says, okay, I'm in, life changed. Now you realize you're worthy of it and people are going to pay you that. But until you say it's 10 grand and then don't say another word and stick to your guns there, people are going to pay it. They're going to say, well, it must be worth it if it's 10K. They're going to say, that sounds right, because you're telling me I'm going to get this result. Like, let me give you a quick illustration. So another workshop I had a, you know, one of those really big like screens, like, you know, like 2 stories. Like I had this workshop I was doing, and we got this room that had this 2-story like screen, right? So I'm standing in front of this huge screen, and I'm like telling the people in the workshop, I'm like, I want to go through this offer that I found. So I started at the top as a sales letter, and I'm like, okay, this is what you get with this offer, which is fantastic. And at the top, it was like, you get the content, you get the sales funnel. We're going to handle the technical. We're going to handle the graphic art for you. We're going to give you the legal pages. We're going to coach you. We're going to drive traffic for you. We're going to give you a closer. I mean, all the way down the page, right? And I got down to the bottom and I'm like, take out your sheet of paper. I want you to write down what you would charge for this and what you think this guy's charging. And so they all wrote it down. They passed it to the front. I started reading what everyone said. I'm like, Johnny said 10 grand. Missy said 15 grand. Frankie said 30 grand, you know, all the way down the page. Let me show you what he's charging. So I scrolled down just a little bit more to the price, yep. $250.
Wow.
So I'm like, what does that tell you? Scam, wow. Not right, loser. You know, and I was like, that's the power I'm talking about. You guys are out there selling these life-changing programs for $997, $450, $125, and your people don't believe you. But when you say it's 10 grand or 50 grand, they're like, that makes sense. Here's my Amex. But yeah. Until you say it's 10 grand and zip it, no one's ever going to pay you 10 grand because life gives you what you ask of it, right? So if you say, I'm a 10, this program, and another thing is they're not really paying you anyway. So when you think, I got to go get these degrees and certifications and be a best-selling author and famous podcaster or whatever, they don't really care. They care about themselves. And when they see that what you're providing them, the end result, the solution to the problem that's keeping them up late at night, they're buying themselves, right? They're paying that money for them. They're investing in themselves, not you. So they're giving you 10 grand for themselves. And they're believing in themselves. And I've had so many people that say, you know, Eric, we haven't even had our first call yet. I haven't even logged into the program. I haven't done anything. But the sheer act of giving you 10 grand has changed my life.
Totally.
Yeah.
You know, Jen Sincero talks about this in her book, You're a Badass at Making Money. And she said that her life changed when she started doing business one-to-one coaching with people, charging 10 grand and zipping it. But then she said, and after that came the responsibility of making sure that I come to every meeting one-to-one at the top of my game, both of us coming in at the top of our games. But she said that one of the ways that she had the courage to change, because she went from broke to abundant, was when she herself invested in one of the top coaches at the time on the internet, on mindset, shifting this poor mentality into a rich mentality. And she was sort of, I don't know, I think she was like 30s, 40s, and she'd gone through life like that, very much like me. And she invested 100K into some one-to-one coaching. So just by having that commitment, I knew this person was good, but I knew I had to do that to show myself that I have to spend, I have to part with that. And then I'm doing this for me. And if I'm going to spend 100 grand on something, I'm going to sure as hell make it work. And that just changed her life, the coaching, and then her ticket one-to-one coaching, which of course she changed the pricing of that as she developed her confidence and her sense of self-worth. And this is excellent. And it's even helpful for people that might not be in the coaching space, but they're pricing their books, you know, and they're positioning themselves in a certain way. I remember when I had an email list, and it wasn't very big. Well, it was big because I've been building it for a little while, but there was about 6,000 or 7,000 on the email list. It's not seen as a big list in the sort of publishing space. And I said to my VA, we're going to start charging people for solo shout outs on newsletters. And she said, we can't do that. You know, we can't do that because we haven't got a very big email list. And I said, yeah, but I'm talking about a really special solo shout. And I'm sort of, you know, we're doing really well at this. Let's do it. And we got loads, and still do, of people coming forward wanting us to shout out their book on our newsletter. And we get paid, and I get paid. And that it's not the sort of high ticket, but it trickles in, but it's just automated. There's nothing to do. And it's those sorts of things. And I started thinking, okay, it's not a 30,000 list yet, but I'm doing good on there. This was like a year and a half ago or something. I'm going to start doing it. And it's just very lucrative. You know, all these people sort of subscribing to do that. So just what you said, it's so true. And because I do sell high ticket programs and different price programs, and I'm developing my own programs, it is about saying 10,000 because it's worth it.
Yeah.
You're authentic, and then zipping it, because I haven't done that. I go into like justification, what they're going to get, and all of that does come back to
I'm
self-worth.
curious, Caroline, because Caroline is also one of our coaches here in the Kendall Cashflow community. And she sold many of our high ticket products from 10,000 to 25,000 and all. So now you've got something different, a different approach, right? You go and you give them the price, as Eric said, and that's it. And see what happens.
Yeah, and and I call myself the master closer anyway. So that's sky's the limit. But even just thinking about what Eric's talked about, there's that I've been thinking of one-to-one coaching at that very high ticket level. Yeah. Now my publishing business is so successful. I can help people, really help them one-to-one. So that's something that I want to do. And
you should reach out to Eric, because that's your guy.
Yeah, right? I'd like to. Yeah, absolutely. But I think the conversation about self-worth is valuable for everyone here, whether they're moving into the high ticket space or they're publishing, and that they're looking at different ways to sell products, because it is when you get over that, then you move more into the less is more mentality, where, like you say, Eric, you can have a few things that you're doing that are very profitable rather than 100 things all at once, which is what I've also done before. So I think that's really helpful, that conversation around knowing our worth when we've got talents and skills, and making sure that we charge accordingly.
Yeah, one thing that popped in my head while you were talking there, and that was excellent, is one thing that one phenomenon I've seen happen a lot for many years now is someone will come on board and they'll, let's say they paid 10K. So they're coming on board, they're going to pay 10K. So let's say I send them an invoice or a link to pay the 10K. And then they come back and they're like, well, I'm going to have, it's not taking the credit card. And it's like, I have the money in there, but the daily limit has been hit. And they'll say things like, I guess I've never spent that much on one pop. Right. So they're like, the first time they're paying 10K is to me. Yeah. Their whole life, right? Like they didn't never buy anything with a 10. So they paid 10K. I'm like, yeah, you just need to raise the limit. Just call the credit card or raise your limit, right? It happens a lot. So they raise their limit, right? And then they pay the 10K, and then they're like, well, just paying the 10K changed my life. Then when I started helping them to charge 10K, I mean, charge high ticket, of course, they all want to charge 10K, right? They paid 10K. Now they're going to charge 10K, not 15K, not 5K, not 30K, 10K, right? And then I'm like, well, okay, you picked 10K because you paid me 10K. And she's like, no, well, I part of it, but so what happens is since they paid 10K and they went through my program, they're now confident, or they're going through my program, now they're confident to charge 10K, right? Because they paid 10K. So they're like, if I pay 10K, there's so many people like me that'll pay 10K also. I'm like, what about 30K? Oh, that's too much, right? Like,
that's another hurdle right there.
Right, there's a whole nother level.
There's a confidence session in the space. It's true.
Or 100K, it's like,
yeah, well, 10K feels safe because they paid it. They can relate. Exactly. So it's safe. It's safe. So, whereas like, I'm not good.
If I get a 30K client, then the 30K clients starts charging 30K. In fact, I have a client right now. She paid 25K. So I gave her a 5K bonus, right? A scholarship. She paid 25K. And guess what she's charging? 25K.
Of course. Yeah.
That's what she's charging her clients.
That's interesting.
Funny how that is.
It's monkey see, monkey do. One of the things I learned about pricing, man, and having the confidence to price yourself right was from Dan Kennedy. Yeah. And when I first started out, he said, I was selling something on eBay, and this was probably like 20. And he said, most entrepreneurs don't have the nerve. They don't have the balls, the brass balls, to price themselves the right way. And he says, if only they did, they would charge 10 times as much. So I was selling something on eBay. This was a piece of software that I had developed, and I was selling it for $9.97 on eBay. I read that passage in this book. I immediately took it from $9.97 to $97. Didn't change the number of copies that I was selling of the software. Not at all. 10x the amount of money. I went out and I saw this. We were in Thailand at one time, and I saw this set of brass balls, and I keep it right here in my desk drawer, because regardless of, look, I've sold as high as 30,000, and you still have those reservations every once in a while. I've got a $10,000, not 10,000, $100,000 program that I'm working on. And you still have those reservations, even as you've seen everything else that you've done, you've overcome different things. And I look at this thing whenever I have this objection in my head, right? Because it's not something, I don't think, that ever goes away. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that they have a product and they're selling it for, they get past the $97. Okay, now I'm at $97. I've done it. And now their next course, they want to sell at $997, but they have to deal with this again. And then the next thing, 5,000, next thing, 10,000, your students, right? 30,000. Does that ever go away?
You mean, does it go away as far as that next evolutionary level price that you're going to?
Battling with yourself.
No, doesn't.
You do it.
Yeah, you have to go through that at each level. Like, I've never sold a coaching program or some kind of program for $1 million, but what I'm comfortable selling for $1 million is a business. You see what I mean? So could I charge someone $100K? A minute ago, I talked about meeting Les Brown. Well, you know who was there? It was Tony Robbins. And at the time, he was literally sitting at the table next to me with his MacBook computer that was the same as mine. And I was like, look, he's got the same computer as me. He's like, at the time he was talking, like, during the break, like, because every break, everyone just mobbed that guy. And he was like talking about how he had $1 million coaching program. It's $1 million. And I was like, man, I need to charge more.
$1 million a year at that. It's $1 million a year, his program.
$1 million a year. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I think, at each price point, there's a threshold. Like, well, I remember when I started charging like 30, 35K. I mean, I remember the moment someone said yes and was ready to pay it. I was at the grocery store with my wife. You check your phone, walk around the phone while she's buying everything under the sun. I'm like, how many different types of lettuce do we need? Like,
wait, did you say while she was buying everything under the sun? Man, we got so many similarities. I'm talking to my wife about Ritz crackers. I'm like, just buy one damn type of Ritz cracker. Right. Don't need the cheesy ones, the extra cheesy, and then the garlic cheesy. And
so I'm like checking my phone, and then I'm
Eric's like, what did I get myself into?
I'm like checking my phone, and then I see like, oh, I got someone that's paying 35K, whatever it was at the time. And I'm like,
yeah,
I can't believe it. And then I thought it was going to be a certain type of person, right? I thought it was going to be someone that already owned a big business, was already making millions, already this, that. It was a brand spanking newbie. Wow. Had never made any money before online. And I'm like, okay, he just has a lot of cash or whatever. So then the next person that's going to pay is likely going to be, someone who already owns a business, someone's already doing millions. Nope. The next person, brand spanking newbie, right? So I'm like, if these people will pay 35 grand and they're brand new, they've never made lickety split money online at all. They don't have a bunch of revenue coming in. They're just pulling out money out of savings or something and slapping it on a credit card or whatever. Then I could charge even more, because businesses have a lot more money and it's their baby and they're more willing. So I just keep raising prices and newbies keep paying for it, or intermediate marketers or intermediate people keep paying for it, right? I'm like, this is an interesting dynamic going on. It's what's happening here, and this is the key word. If you want to write something down, write this word down. It's counterintuitive. Mm-hmm. So my mind thinks A, and like my wife would say, you're wrong. Right? I am wrong. Like, so many of my thoughts of what I believe are just wrong. They're not right when it comes to business. So even at this stage, tens of millions of dollars, I'm wrong all the time. So if I think the only people that are going to pay me 35 grand or 50 grand are business owners who are already doing seven figures or more, I'm wrong. There's other people that'll pay that too. And the whole point there is say it's 50 grand and zip it because people will pay it. And until you get to the point where you actually charge someone that and just sit back and let them say yes or no, then you don't realize the amount that people will pay you.
Yeah, you have no idea. No idea at all. And then I think that's really good, Eric. So good. I think that the thing that we also, and I want to be conscious every time, so I'm gonna leave.
Oh, I'm good. Yeah. I'm
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. I think the other thing that we forget is that like we're so focused on what we see, our environment. So we're making our decisions based off of no one's gonna pay 10 grand or 20 grand or 50 grand because we may not be that person. We may not see anyone around us that has talked about joining the $50,000 program, right? So and we forget that there's 7-8 billion people on the earth. And you don't need all that. You just need like 0.00001%, less than that, right? To say, okay, here's my card. Or how do I make a wire transfer? Right? Or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a $50,000, $25,000, $10,000, $5,000 program. It could be your $500 program that you're having reservations about selling right now.
Right.
And there's way more of those people that will pay $100, $500, $1,000, right? So if you had to give one piece of advice to someone who they have everything, I mean, they've got everything. They've got the know-how, they've got the good looks, they've got the smarts, they've got the charisma, they've got the people like them already, but they're still dealing with it. And the reason why I want to talk you to talk to that person is because those are the people that I see who most likely have the self-belief issues. Les Brown said something one time. He said, sometimes you don't even, you have to know, you have to be so, he said, dumb that you don't know that it can't work. So the guy that's so dumb that he doesn't know that it can't work, he's out there doing it. But then I see so many people that are just brilliant and should be killing it that are not doing it because they are overthinking it a little bit too much. What do you have to say to that person?
Well, so this is what I'm going to say, and this is a lean in moment too. So let's say I'm going to pick somebody and we're going to go to battle together and we're going to go try to make $1 billion.
Okay.
So I'm picking one other person. I don't want the person that's good looking. I don't care about that. I don't want the person that has charisma. I don't want the person that has a tremendous amount of talents. Don't give me someone who has a lot of talents because I know a lot of talented people that are broke and haven't done anything with those talents. Don't give me anyone who's super smart because you're brilliant and you work at Walmart. You see what I'm saying? Like, don't give me someone who's brilliant either. I don't need brilliance. I don't want that person on my side. That all that helps. Being good looking helps. All that helps. But that's not who I want side by side with me to go into battle in business and to go to those levels. So don't give me someone smart, charismatic, talented, any of that, good looking, old, young, big, small, thin, none of that. None of that matters. Give me the person that is brave. Give me the person that has courage to go for it. That's the person I want on my team because we're going to go, because as humans, we live in these little bubbles, right? These little cycles, these creatures of habit, right? We're humans, we're creatures of habit. We live in this comfort zone bubble. And if you want more, then like Jim Rohn says, you've got to become more, right? Well, if you're going to go outside that bubble, go out onto the limb to get the fruit, then you have to have the courage to do it. Okay. And most people don't have that courage. So when Les Brown says what he says about that, and everyone else is like, you have this little trigger in your brain that throws up the brakes. Oh, wait a minute. That's too hard. That's too scary. That's too big. I don't want to charge 100 grand. That's too much responsibility. I'm not good enough. All this kind of stuff. Then there's these other people who's a small percentage of the population that say, I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah, it's fearful. It's scary. It's big. It's going to give me a lot of responsibility. It's hard. It's going to require this or that. Others, people will say that's too much work, that's too much responsibility, it's too scary, it's too this or that. So but there's these other people that have this like, I guess it's a switch in their brain that doesn't flip, and they just go for it, right? And give me that person. Give me the person with courage that's willing to go for it and to be embarrassed, to get ridiculed, to get tore down, to lose it all, right? Like we've lost it all, to get attacked by the IRS, to have your merchant account frozen with 100 grand sitting in there. The person that's willing to have the courage to just go for it despite all that, that's what I want on my team. That's what I want side by side with me. And then beyond that is the person that's going to stick to it. So are we going to stick to it? So once we go for our dream and our plan, then it's inevitable that it's going to get hard. We're gonna have opportunities to resistance going to hit us, right? As soon as we decide we're going to do something bigger than what we've been doing, then boom, you get hit with resistance. It's automatic. It's inevitable. It is guaranteed, right? So as soon as you get hit with that resistance, do you let the resistance, kick your ass and you cry into the hills with your tail stuck between your leg? Or do you keep going through the resistance and pop out the other side, right? When you break through to the other side of that resistance, then what happens on the other side? That's when the sun is shining and the birds are singing and life is better, because you broke through this resistance to this higher level, and now you're in this higher level, and you got to stick to it through the resistance, right? So give me the person with courage and the person with resilience or relentlessness or whatever you want to call that fortitude to stay with your dream, stay with your plan, stay with your goal, because you're going to get knocked down. You're going to hit resistance. It's going to be hard. If not, everyone would do it. And it could be just as hard as like, I just can't get myself to charge high ticket, or it could be, I just can't get myself to spend money on traffic, or I just can't get myself to the courage to ask someone to promote for me as a JV, or, whatever it is. We all have these resistance to hold us back, but when we plow through that, so we have the courage to plow through it, we have the commitment to stick to it, then what comes out of that is you start getting, new skills and new awareness and new realizations, and you reach a new level where now you realize, oh, I can charge 10K, or I can charge 50K, or I can drive traffic, or I can recruit people. Now it becomes common for you. Like, remember the first time you asked someone to promote for you? Yeah. Like, it was hard, right? Like, it was like getting rejected all the time, and people telling you, who are you to be asking me to promote? And people are brutal out there, right? And it's like, I remember the first time I started recruiting people, I'm like, man, I am not cut out for this. But I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. Keep trying. I'm going to make myself ask 100 people. And all of a sudden, people started saying yes. And then like a year later, I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to promote for me? What's the matter with you? Like, I was so used to it. The whole thing changed. I'm used to it, right? So like, it's not the brilliance. I mean, if you're smart and you went to the Ivy League school and all that, congratulations. You got a bunch of degrees. You're a doctor. Great. I've met a lot of morons who are doctors, but so what does, none of that matters, right?
No offense, though. I got to put a disclaimer because we got a lot of doctors in this community. You guys are brilliant doctors, brilliant doctors.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, no, I totally. I
get a lot of brilliant doctors saying, "Can you help me do this business so I don't have to be a doctor anymore?" Right. So I'm saying, like, that's who you want on your team. You want someone with courage, commitment, resilience, fortitude. That person that's like hungry, that's got fire in their ability to go get it. And that's who I want. So all the brilliance and all that's not. Ain't gonna cut it.
If you are the person that think there's something missing in you, there's not. It's the courage. And Eric, you hit it right on the head, man. That's a perfect way. It's the courage and the will to continue to move forward. Hey, where could people find you? And look, if you guys are interested in learning more about coaching and getting coaching from Eric, or and I don't even know if you're taking on people or not, but if someone is and they want to, work with you, how could someone find you?
You can just email me, or I guess you can hook me up on hit me up on social medias. You can, my podcast, ericlouviershow.com. You can't really contact me through there. Just want me to give out my email address?
Yeah, if you're okay with it, I mean.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Because we're broadcasting on YouTube, and then this goes all over the place as well. So if you're okay with it, but only reach out to him if you're serious, not go in and pick his brain about just, crap. right? So not, hey, Eric,
Right.
what's the weather out there in Austin, right? Hey, Eric, man, I really heard you on the show, the Monday Morning Meetup. I'm serious. I want to get started. What do I do? So those people.
I will say, first of all, if you email me anything like that, we just delete it. But if you email, like, here's what I'll do. Email me the word tie in the subject line, and I know why you're emailing me. So it's just my name, ericlouvier@gmail.com.
Gotcha. Got it. Okay. All right. Perfect. All right, guys. Look, we got to get you back, Eric, man, because I feel like there's so much more that we can cover on this thing. I feel like we could do 3-4 episodes here with everything that you've got. So we haven't spoken in a long time, so it's
Yeah,
good to speak to you, and we got to stay in contact, brother.
absolutely, man. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you, everybody, for listening to me and letting me share some of my stuff. And I appreciate all y'all, and go get them.
Absolutely. Man, Caroline, that was a good one right there, right?
Yeah, really good, really good. And so on point in terms of the small percentage of people that have that courage, the commitment, the flexibility, all those sorts of things, because there's so many people who are hugely talented,
Yeah.
and have so many qualifications and credentials, and
experiences.
don't have that courage. Yeah. So that was phenomenal. I think I hope that helps everyone grab some of that courage. And I think it's also great for people to see that on that journey, there's going to be the resistance, like Eric said, there's going to be the hard times. And it's very easy to think it's just you that it's happening to, but it's just part of the roller coaster of being an entrepreneur. So, which is why you got to be brave, to do it and just keep pushing forward. So this was great. This was really great. Thank you so much, Eric, for sharing this.
Yeah, it was really good. And as he said, look, if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? I do tend to think that it is easier if you get in. It's easier once you start to realize, look, there's going to be some obstacles. There may be some roadblocks, right? But there will be fewer of those than there are good times, right? There's more good times than there are of the BS. Let us know, guys, in the groups. Go in and, as always, post your biggest takeaway. What's been your one aha moment, or your 2 or your 3 or your 4 or your 5? Eric gave us about 10 different aha moments. I'm sitting here writing notes throughout this entire interview of things that I've got and takeaways that I have here. So please go in and share them in the group. Let us know what your biggest aha moments were, your biggest takeaways were. And of course, we're going to get Eric back at some point and continue this thing. So that's it. Caroline, I'm out. I'm going to the gym, and I'm going to come back feeling like a new man. I've got this
Yeah,
episode and the gym, a double hitter there. So stay well. I'll see you. We'll see you guys on the next. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Eric.
Bye, guys.